Thank you, Pak Nyaman Sastra, as our second panelist. Next, for third panelist from Dr. Edi Priyo Pambudi, from Asisten Deputi Menteri Moneter dan Neraca Pembayaran, Deputi Menteri Bidang Koordinasi Ekonomi Makro dan Keuangan.
Thank you very much. Welcome to Bali, everyone. I think it's a good moment. Even this is very challenging conference because even my body in this room, perhaps my mind's at the beach, right? And I also just noticed to the committee to replace the 2017 to 2018 before stepping into the stage, because I just sent pictures to my friends, and then my friend said, "This is last year, right? Because it's noted by 2017, not 2018." Then now the committee just fixed it. All right, so in the beginning, I just want to get the lesson learned experience, how to educate our kids, for example. When our kids question about, may I ride bicycle? And then as parents say, no, you will fall down. And then when grow up to be, can I cook a food by myself? Then we said as a parent, no, your hand will be burned. And then again, if we grow up to be, can I drive a car? And then yes, as a parent we say no, because you can get accident. Then finally, as a government official is growing up, then someone comes to us, allow me to find a way how to create a business. Then I will say no, because this is the experience to say no, yeah, from the kid until now. Why then it looks so frightening? So that's why, so sorry, I just want to see another angle of this business, because everyone I think is already understand here. If we talk about Bitcoin, it's always blockchain. But we talk about blockchain, it's not always Bitcoin, because we can also use this technology for another thing, right? So, blockchains, we believe this is unconventional alternative infrastructures, because now is the era that we have to connect one by one, yeah, because we need to have a connection. We need to have a cooperation one to another, because we cannot just stand alone. Suppose that you already buy a new computers, new laptop, without any internet, what happened? You buy a smartphones without a signal, and then what? So we need a connection. But in fact, here you are. This is the fact. Sometimes we miss the connection. So that's why if we take a look here, I just want to have a very little story about this one, because I attended a high-level meeting when we want to decide blockchain as a commodity. Yes, central banks already prohibited as a payment system. Then, so sorry, OJK at that time, Pak Tirta also stated that this is not the financial services area. Okay. And then now, the Ministry of Finance, we discussed with the Ministry of Finance. At that time, they said this is not priority. Then we have another opportunity now with the Ministry of Trade, because we want to know about the technology behind of the crypto itself, and why we have to block the innovations come to this country. Because we also need to connect with the other, right? And then many people question about what is the core of the problem. They always say underlying assets. What the underlying asset is trust. Wherever your business, the underlying asset is trust. Take a look your money notes, rupiah notes for example. What is the underlying asset? Is it securitized by gold? No. It's just by a statement. With the God bless, and then the central bank issues this money with the denominated 100,000 rupiahs. Take a look also in Malaysia, in US, for example, in dollar. In God we trust. That's the underlying assets. As long as we can convince to the public that this system is very secure, then the public will trust. All right. Here you are. This is the potential interconnectivities for the development. For the state now, our governments try to develop infrastructure massively in everywhere. Yeah, because we look left behind compared with other countries. In terms of connectivity in this case, if they don't have any data sources to connect one to another, I think it's still a problem. For example, we will launch MRT, for example, in Jakarta, but we don't have any data sources to process the movement of the trains, so we miss a good schedule for the train itself, right? Even for logistics, for example, it is very difficult to arrange the connectivity of the logistic if we don't have any good integrated data sources. So then in the next stage is, why then we have to process acceleration? Then you have to come the technology. You need to integrate between data sources, infrastructures to accelerate the process. Then we will enjoy with the development of the economy. Yeah. So these three stages will be running as soon as possible. And this is the real case from the government side. For example, now we try to collect data for services development sectors. Yeah, we know that based on the GATS, based on the global service development, we have more than 100 types of services sectors. And in Indonesia, we regulate among 24 ministries and institutions. Then we have to collect data one by one from the ministries. Otherwise, the National Statistics Bureau will just depend on the surveys. Then what the result is? Even you have activities, even you manage flow of money, billions rupiah, but it is not yet recorded by the national statistic. So then why our GDP is undervalued? Because so much activity is not yet recorded in National Statistics Bureau. Why? Because there is no any connection of data. So this is a challenge. When we try to collect the information across the ministries, then we need the technology. Otherwise, we have to send the papers, send an email, whatever, and then they have to make a checklist by manual, by on papers, and then they have to send. And then what happens if the data is updated? Then they have to do, and so on and so on. So I think it's not in practice. Then another case now, online single submission. We really aggressive to repair this process. Why? Because when the new business want to come to the real market, they have to deal with many documentation, and then they have to arrange the documentation from one office to another office. They have to get the tax registration, they have to get the corporation license, whatever. And based on experience, like a mining corporation, they need to have 100 documentation, and takes almost 5 years to get all license. I think it's impossible. Means all documentation will be represented only one paper. Only one paper. And then why is so difficult? Because, yeah, this is the challenge also. Because we just depend on the very old data is collected by survey. And then it is not yet standardized among institutions. So that's why in the real case of OSS, it still have a problem when data from one source to compare with another data, there's a problem. So that's why this OSS also needs a blockchain, because they have to connect from one data source to another data source, from one government to another government. Then we will see how best our data then. Who is governments who really best and manage the data. Sometimes we don't realize, right? Every day we create data. Before you enjoy your food, you will take a pictures, right? And then put into the Instagram, for example. That is a part of, as example, that you always create data. All right. Now, however, there's a major challenge right here. Yeah, sorry. Here you are. Good data documentation is not yet the cultures. Yeah. We have our activities, but in the end, we not yet make a documentation for the activities. Then we have to change in the culture set. Yeah. Another thing is the sectoral based data. We know data is created in one sector to another sectors, but we don't have a means of connection. How to connect from data to another data. All right, number 18 about e-governance, and it will be mandatory in 2022. So every government should have data driven on decision making. So this is potential. You can also offer the technology of blockchains to make it data driven. Suppose that this is mandatory for the governments when they have information. But in implementation is still centralistic. So that's why we need to think what the best design for this regulation. Then this is the step forwards, yeah, for the blockchains. One is how then push the blockchain's technology information here. It's just like the event. You have many events, and good events if you also invite many people from different perspective, and then we try to create a conclusion. Then you need to also to enhance the users and the society. Yeah, sometimes because the misunderstanding of the language, then we miss the connection. The other one is you have to use the critical system. Means that you need to have a showcase. You need to have an example, and it is critical. So that every sector will find you, yeah, to implement your technology. And then we need to have produce data scientists, because if you bring this technology but you don't have people to fill in, so I think it's impossible you run the business, or you just depend on another work, yeah, to fill in the data sources as a data scientist. Here you are, yeah. Then we need this soon. One is how to produce data scientists. So with some of friends now, we try to develop training centers in the small city named Malang, close to Surabaya. Why we use the small city? Because we need to have on-street exercise. I mean, we put the exercise on the city to take the data from the real world, and then we try to put into the training center. Then people will exercise with data, the real data. Then develop the massive society. Yeah, you need to have an association in this case, and bring showcase. And the last is log into as a need. Mean everyone will need your technology, because if we use these pictures, we have a word, then data is trying to extract everything from the word, right? And then if you can add the value, then data will be the information, then give the value to public. If everyone will use your information and then also give some benefit here, then there will be a knowledge. They come to the university, they come whatever, the training centers, there will be a knowledge. Then in the end, if this knowledge will be benefited to all people, then we'll come to the wisdom. Then any regulation will follow you. So means, if you can come with many things that make everyone get the benefits, I think the regulation is just follow. we can use the example like the Gojek, yeah, because they all already give benefit to many people to raise their income, also give job creation. Then the policy of the government just follow. So this is the tips, yeah. I think it's not so frightening for the blockchain. It's just come to this country, and then we will support. But again, what our colleagues say is just to give like a sign that even we can work with the innovation, but at the other side, sometimes people want to take benefits in illegal ways. So that's why we have to take a precaution.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Eddie, for the good presentation. So next will be our panel discussion, because we don't have any time right now. So there will be one question to every panelist. So the first question will be to Pak Alvin from OJK. So our question is there any OJK roadmap about blockchain and cryptocurrency in the future, and if what ecosystem that will build by OJK in the future through the blockchain?
Okay, thank you very much. We have standpoint. Can I stand it? Can someone help me about my presentation? Because this is very important for us. What is stand position of the OJK about the blockchain and the cryptocurrency in the future? So, and related with the fintech peer-to-peer lending ecosystem. So, in OJK we have make what we call it as the ecosystem of the fintech lending. The ecosystem paling belakang, the last. Okay, stop. Agak ke bawah sedikit supaya kelihatan enak. Enggak, ke bawah sedikit. Nah, yang saya mau gambar kotak-kotak itu loh. Yeah. So this is what we call the ecosystem of the fintech lending. Through the fintech peer-to-peer lending, it will connected to the e-commerce and something like that, and all of this kind of boxes, number 1, number 2. But this is our roadmap also. We will start on 2020 to use the blockchain system for the fintech peer-to-peer lending system in Indonesia. Not only OJK as a regulator, but also all the fintech lending industry. One of the we will implement in 2020 is the host-to-host supervision. All the each server from the fintech peer-to-peer lending will connect it to the OJK. And OJK also will change the supervision to the financial industry, especially the fintech. It really host-to-host on blockchains. Next. So this is our roadmap, the fintech lending. Right now, we are in the phase of the consolidation, penetration, and collaboration. But, as I said to you before, by end of 2019 or 2020, we will start blockchain and crypto technology as a part of the fintech peer-to-peer lending. But, again, this is based on the regulation from the Bapepti, or Ministry of Trade. But the blockchain itself, for the system, yes, we're gonna implement this as our roadmap and ecosystem and fintech peer-to-peer lending on 2020. So, from standing position of OJK, that's blockchain as a system, this is very useful. We know it's very powerful, very futuristic, and we will combine it to the fintech peer-to-peer lending in the future. That's our future roadmap and view about the blockchain itself.
Okay, thank you, Alvin, for the answer. And another question is to Pak Nyoman. Yeah. So the question is how to protect business from criminal, and what is the consequences if we don't protect?
Okay, thank you for the question. It's just like I mentioned in my previous slide that you need to understand the risk first. When you understand the risk, you have to coordinate to mitigate those risks. With who? With the government. Protect your business from the customer, from your partner, from your investors. Make sure that they use legal money into your business. So, according to the FATF standard, it is an international standard. It's applicable to all the countries. It's not just only for Indonesia, but also for other countries. Just very new updating on the standard. Standard number 15, FATF recommendation number 15, mentioning that virtual asset service providers should be subject to the same requirements and oversight as financial institution. As a bank, as a capital market, you treat it the same. What you need to do, you have to do a customer due diligence. A simple one is KYC, know your customer. Doing ongoing monitoring, record keeping, reporting a suspicious transaction. And you also should be licensed and registered, subject to monitoring and compliance by the supervisors. So you need to be coordinated with a government and to mitigate those risks, to make your business going concerns or increase or growing in the futures. Thank you, Pak.
Okay, thank you, Pak Nyoman, for the answer. And the last question is to Dr. Edi from Deputy Menteri Moneter dan Neraca Pembayaran. So the question will be how government using decentralized technology rather than use centralized?
Yeah, because we now get the experience from the OSS that centralistic data sometimes is good, but the other one is also have a problem, because when we deal with many local government interests, then it's a lot of various interests there. So it means that we need to have a good system, the technology, then all interests will be accommodated inside of the system itself. So I believe that the technology now is really really good for that reason. But in the things we need to get the reasons is security reasons or authority reasons. Security reason, we can put this thing into the technology, but the authority reason, we need to have regulations.
So the second question is how government feel about blockchain technology, also cryptocurrency in the future?
Yeah, that I think it's a good opportunity to us, and then governments really welcome with this technology, but we need to have a step-by-step process, and then we really understand why still prohibited whatever. Many reasons about the security, but we still believe that someday, I think everything will be ruled, because I already said to my colleagues in the meeting, look, the players of the crypto asset is still young. So mean if we block with the regulation right now, they just wait until the next era, the next regime, until they get the authority. To get the approval, then okay. So, but we lost the moment, right? They're still young, so mean just waiting the time. So why then we not start from now to regulate everything, rather than we have to wait until we lost the generation. Thank you.
Okay, everybody, our panel discussion is already finished, and please give applause, big applause to the three panelists. Thank you. Sudah.
Thank you, Pak Dhani, Pak Alvin, Pak Nyoman, and Dr. Edi for giving your expertise. I would like now to call upon our next presenter, Dr. Richard Satur, as Chief Executive Officer of the clinic. Dr. Satur has worked in IT for over 30 years. Originally a university senior lecturer and researcher at the Victoria University of Technology and University of Melbourne. Dr. Satur set up an IT development company, building enterprise solutions for major corporates throughout the world. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm applause for Dr. Satur.
So you're probably guessing that I'm not Indonesian. Okay, I don't know what gives it away, but I'm actually from Australia. I come to Bali very often. In fact, I would argue that most Australians think of Bali as the 8th state of Australia, and rightly so. It's beautiful. So thank you very much. I appreciate you waiting around just before lunch. I'm also aware that lunch starts in about 15 minutes. So I am going to try my best to make sure that I go right through lunch. Okay, I'm going to make sure you all miss lunch listening to me. No. I'll take 15 minutes, okay? I won't take all the time. So I am the CEO of D-Clinic, and I don't know if you're aware, but at the moment, Australia is negotiating a fair trade agreement with Indonesia. It's very big. Sorry? Free. So consider my appearance over here as an early adopter of that agreement. The other thing I will say is that I will be making very, very big statements. Now, I make them to you because I really believe them, and I'm hoping I'm going to challenge you on some of these statements. I also won't talk about our company. What I'm going to talk about is where I think blockchain is going to be revolutionary. And one of the areas that I think blockchain is going to absolutely change the way we do business is healthcare. Healthcare touches all of us. All right? You either get access to healthcare or you don't get access to healthcare, but in any event, healthcare touches all of us. And I think blockchain has so much to offer, and I'm going to be an advocate for it. So once again, I'm going to make very big statements, and I'm going to challenge all of you. So there I am, I'm sitting in my chair over there, and I'm going to read you a lunchtime story. So Mum, Dad, why can't I own my health record? And my claim to you is I think you can. In fact, you should own your health record, and I think healthcare needs blockchain. In fact, my first big statement is I think without blockchain, healthcare is doomed. So this is my bedtime story. So there I am again. Okay. By the way, I drew all these diagrams. No, I didn't. I'm lying. Someone else drew them all. So the first thing is, I'm in a foreign country. Let me give you a real case scenario here. I'm in a foreign country, or I can't communicate my health position, or I can't even remember the drugs that I take. Help. I'm in trouble. By the way, this is a very good likeness of our esteemed Dr. Robbie Tung over there. You'll probably recognize some of these caricatures, by the way. And so Dr. Robbie tells me, he says, oh, no problem here. You see, at the moment, healthcare data is siloed around the world. Meaning healthcare data exists in individual silos around the world. But you know what? If we adopt a distributed ledger or blockchain approach to how we work with that data, we can be beneficial for you. So let me give you a scenario. Sorry, Liz. So let's look at a real world example. So there you go. There's a patient. By the way, this poor patient has been born without a body. It's very sad. So there's a patient in the center saying that I want a positive outcome. I want you to help me. I need healthcare help. So what do you recommend, Dr. Robbie? Well, let me send a referral to a wellness expert I know. Do I have your consent? Now that's very important, that part. Do I have your consent? And the patient responds, yes, please. So I will invite them and give them access to my findings too. I've just had a look at their record and yes, I can help them. Now, that interaction you just saw over there seems like a very simple interaction, but I guarantee you that most healthcare around the world can't even perform that interaction. And that's a small interaction. That's a tiny interaction. Any interaction we should capture. Not just the one with the doctor, but any interaction. In fact, I challenge you that care teams can be not just the doctor, but wellness experts. They can be specialists. In fact, they can even be family members. So if you have a carer in your family, why can't they contribute to your care? And I'm telling you, blockchain can do this. So for example, he's not my regular patient, says Dr. Robbie Tong. Remember, I'm telling you a bedtime story here, okay? So go with the flow. So he's not my regular patient. You have my consent. Well, thank you. I think I'll hand this over to a nurse. Look at the complexity of the interactions, because this is now typically what happens in healthcare. So, thank you for calling me. I'll add some data. Hang on, now I'll bring in the lab because I need to do some blood tests. By example, those blood tests might have irregularity, so now other specialists get involved. Now family members get involved, and the family members start to say, hang on, we need to help here. We can help because we're at home, we're with the patient, we're with the consumer. And by the way, you'll notice that even though I've been mentioning the word patient, even though I've been calling them patients, to me, they are all consumers because we are all consumers of healthcare. So we should be obtaining the best healthcare possible. So our healthcare should be tracking all these interactions. So why does it not? So once again, they can now help to do things like help the consumer to now do their regular exercise, for example. So family members can get involved in their healthcare. Notifications, and I'll get back to that in a minute. And then of course we could get wellness experts involved. So the idea being is that each time you've got proper interactions going around with a care team, with the patient at the center. And my argument is that's exactly what blockchain can do for us. So now, Dr. Robbie Tung and the wellness expert can now interact as part of a care team. So now they're actually working efficiently. So governments and organizations can start to reduce their healthcare costs. How is that possible? Well, if the interactions are being captured and the interactions are actually known, then of course you're going to start reducing health costs because you do things like you don't send them on unwanted tests. You don't do unwanted procedures. You actually target the patient. In fact, one of the benefits of blockchain is you now actually can do preventative medicine, which is enormous. Insurance companies can start to provide real services. Let me ask you this. Which insurance company on the planet would not want to make money off well people? If you are well, if you are healthy, then the insurance company is getting premiums and at the same time is helping you stay well by offering you targeted services. I mean, I'm not going to ask you to put your hand up, but how many of you, every time you go see a doctor, you have to fill in the same form again and again and again and again? Well, why is that? Why do we have to do that? Why can't they just know about me? In fact, we can now start to go to evidence-based positive outcomes. That's the benefit of what we get here. By the way, I have no doubt that over lunch a number of you are going to come and challenge me on this, so that's good. I welcome that. And in fact, now we can start to drive positive health outcomes, which is ideally what we want to do. Pharmaceutical companies are going to benefit from this because now they can target drugs. In fact, think of it like this. If a drug, for example, has a lifespan, you can now notify the patient directly. You shouldn't be taking this, you should now be taking this. If they don't take their drugs, then why can't the system alert? I mean, these are simple things. And my contention is blockchain will give you this. My argument is there's 4 keys to success. By the way, if any of you make millions of dollars from this, you owe me 10%. Okay? There are 4 keys to success here, in my opinion. First one is the need for blockchain. There is no should we do it, we should be doing it. There's no question here. We shouldn't be even having the debate. What we should be doing is doing lots of pilots, doing lots of setups, and actually demonstrating that the technology actually works and is beneficial. By the way, I come with 12 years of experience on a patient health record from Australia. What we call the My Health Record. You can Google that and you can see what an interesting ride that My Health Record or that patient record has had. I was one of the original developers on that, so it's been a really interesting journey. And that is not blockchain enabled, by the way. Okay. The other 3 I say to you is that you need shared care planning. So if any of you know what that means, if you don't know what that means rather, it's about working in a care team. So the idea is that you don't just have a one-on-one interaction, you should be having many interactions. And you should be allowed to increase your care team, decrease your care team. If a gym membership, if you go to the gym to stay fit, that should be part of your care team. I think where cryptocurrency has a really unique position is rewarding the patient. Why not reward them? If they stay healthy, well, let's reward patients. That's good for business, it's good for governments, it's good for outcomes. So let's reward the patient. And I think that's where cryptocurrency has a very, very significant role to play. And I'm not just saying that for our coins, I'm saying that for any health coins. It should not matter. And integration and interoperability, we all talk about it. In fact, Dr. Eddie, just before, mentioned it as being a very key requirement. Systems need to talk to other systems. So interoperability, you get that. So I'm about to give you a little piece of IP, okay? So this is how I think it should be tackled. All right, so this is my little piece of IP. By the way, my slides are very high level, okay? So there's no deep detail or anything. My contention is that you need to have transactional blockchains. You need to have regulatory and consent blockchains, and you need to have standards-based clinical model blockchains. In other words, I'm saying to you there's no one blockchain that can do this. In fact, I'm telling you that I don't think there is a single available blockchain right now that can do this. We all say hybrid blockchains. All of us say it. We say hybrid blockchains, and we think that somehow saying the word hybrid blockchain somehow means that we can do it. I think it's the connectivity of these blockchains that are going to enable us to do it. I think that is more important. And then, of course, sitting on top of that is your actual blockchain access to your to all of your patients and your clinicians and your care team members. I think shared care planning. I think a fundamental inclusion of blockchain needs to be the patient at the center. And I think you need to include the whole care team. So if I look at this care team, why not start rewarding them? I'm just going to skim through this. Why not have the patient communicate back to the caregivers through surveys? Let the patient contribute to their care. Why not? All that's going to happen is that record is going to get more and more rich. Why not give inducements back to organizations like pharmaceuticals and specialists so that they do targeted work as opposed to a scattergun approach? So again, alerts is going to be a very key component of keeping that as a positive outcome. And most importantly is, why can't my family benefit from my health? If my family participate in my health, why not reward them too? They're only making me more cost effective for government bodies and organizations. So my argument is that rewarding people is going to be critical to the success of healthcare. And I did my exercise. So, what's missing from all of this? Interoperability. Whatever we do, I think governments and I think organizations need to start coming together to provide interoperability. Now, this next bit over here is a bit of technical thing. But the point being is that they need to start developing standards for interoperability. That's the key. You don't want to go to a hospital and the hospital not know about you and you have to fill in another form. And now for the good news, because I don't want any of you to go to lunch thinking, oh my God, we're not going to solve healthcare here. Rest assured, there are very good companies working on this. I would include ours as well too, by the way. By the way, that's the only time I'll mention the company now. But there are good companies working on this, small and big, and they realize that by building dedicated healthcare blockchains, that's how you're going to solve the healthcare. So, thank you very much. Hopefully that was nice and short. You're all going to have some lunch. By the way, I welcome questions. If you don't want to ask me a question now, you can later. And just for the record, I say to you that blockchain is a solution to healthcare's brave new world. And all the illustrations were drawn by a local artist. She's fantastic. So she helped me draw all of these illustrations. So do I have any questions? You are all very hungry. I can tell. I might just stand here for another 5 minutes then, just to see what you will all do. Now, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a good lunch, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Richard, for the intriguing session on blockchain in healthcare. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a quick lunch break, and I request for you to be back in your seat in 45 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. I hope the lunch was delightful. I would now like to call upon our next speaker, Mr. Ruben Yap, Chief Operation Officer of Zcoin. He was a corporate lawyer for 10 years, specializing in institutional frameworks before joining Zcoin. He joined the Zcoin team in October 2016 and has played a pivotal role in shaping Zcoin's strategy and vision. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Ruben Yap.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. I am Ruben. I am the CEO of Zcoin, and today it's more about education. And today we are going to find out about how privacy protocols work on the blockchain, how Zcoin particularly approaches it, but also all the other leading privacy mechanisms such as using Dash, Monero, and all this type of things. But right now, I think the most common sort of misconception is that, why do we need financial privacy? And unfortunately, most people associate it with things like, Silk Road, money laundering, and all this type of things. And this has given privacy coins a very bad name. And often the type of, people, when I first tell them about financial privacy, they're like, if I have nothing to hide, why should I care? If I have nothing to fear, right? And financial privacy, the only reason why you will need it is to hide illicit money. That's the common sort of misconception. But privacy is actually what I call like a basic human right. And the person that says you have nothing to fear if you have nothing to hide is actually Joseph Goebbels. He was like the head of the Nazi propaganda party. And basically what you're saying, we are human, right? We have, every time we do something, like financial privacy, for example, if you buy stuff, your financial history, how much you earn, these are all very, very private types of information, and I would say financial privacy ranks amongst the most important things that you need to keep private about your life. And banking has always provided some form of privacy or confidentiality. In US we have all these acts, and even in Malaysia or even Indonesia, everywhere in the world we have some expectation that someone else can't just check my bank account, someone else can't just see what am I spending on. And this is the same with like business activity and contracts. Everything on the blockchain is actually completely transparent, right? Where every single transaction is actually recorded on the blockchain. You can see A transfers to B, transfers to C, what is the amount. And for like coins like Bitcoin, Ethereum, with no source of privacy protocol, the movement of every single coin can be traced to its origin and also its point of creation. And a lot of people always say that, isn't Bitcoin anonymous? Why do I even need a privacy coin, right? Isn't Bitcoin anonymous enough? And actually, if we take a look at it, privacy in Bitcoin is actually, at this current stage, very, very poor. Now, privacy in Bitcoin, when Satoshi just, proposed it, it was never like the number one goal. And the only privacy that it had was, let's say, from person A transfers to person B. In this case, in Bitcoin, is address A to address B. You don't really know who is address A and address B. And you can always create new Bitcoin addresses at will. There's no like sign up process. And this is why, if you've used a Bitcoin wallet before, some Bitcoin wallets tell you if you're going to receive a new amount of money, make sure to create a new Bitcoin address that has no previous transaction history. So Bitcoin isn't anonymous, it's only pseudonymous, meaning that you can see what the person is doing, but you don't know who it is. For example, we know Superman is Clark Kent, but we can see everything that Superman does, but we just don't know that he's actually Clark Kent. And Bitcoin addresses function exactly the same. Okay? Now, the problem with this is that, many people think that, well, okay, if I can just create addresses at will, and, no one knows who the addresses are, why is there a privacy problem? Who can find out who these addresses belong to? And but we are all humans, all right? We have predictable behaviors. We make periodic payments. We, go to the same exchange. We go to Binance. We go to Bittrex. We transact with entities that know our identities. For example, all the exchanges that know our KYC, AML, even vendors like you go through BitPay. You want to ship something to them, they will record your IP address, even your shipping address and real name. Now, even without those information, outside information such as internet IP addresses, social media can further narrow down who is the actual people that are behind certain addresses. And remember, everything on the blockchain is permanently stored. It's not just something that just exists in a temporary space. It's permanently locked down, and you have all the time in the world to analyze. There's actually a whole business that surrounds blockchain analysis. For example, coin firm, Chainalysis, Elliptic, Numeric, Site, and Scribe. These companies focus purely on finding the real, the owners of addresses on Bitcoin and finding how they move money around and spend. And they can also combine various data sources, not just from the blockchain analysis itself, but from law enforcement agencies, exchanges, and many other places as well. And they have a very, very good job in being able to find out, okay, how much this person has, and where his money has come from. Now, that may not seem to be a problem if only a handful of companies can do this, but we're starting to actually see a lot of these tools come into the public space. Google has released tools for both Bitcoin and Ethereum blockchain analysis. You can see patterns and analyze that. You combine that with big data and AI. You can really start looking into the patterns that people spend. And even the studies that say that just from information from public data sources, they will be able to pinpoint almost 50-60% of users just from public sources. And if the public can already ascertain to quite a high degree of certainty, what if we're talking about governments? And governments, NSA has developed spying systems to look at who is doing transactions on Bitcoin. Even the Inland Revenue has also started tracking that as well. So privacy protocols on the blockchain are solving a very interesting problem, because blockchain by design is meant to be completely transparent, so everyone can verify that a certain transaction has happened. And everyone can see balances, transactions, but how do you retain privacy in a system that's supposed to be completely transparent and that records every transaction permanently? This is actually a very, very tricky problem. So there are a couple of privacy protocols. These are probably the main ones which I would consider are taken seriously. There are coin mixers, ring signatures, zero coin that's used in zero cash that is used in Zcash, and something that is going to be launched pretty soon called Mimblewimble. And we just have a brief overview about how these privacy protocols work. So what are coin mixers and tumblers, right? So it's just like everyone puts their coins together, they all mix it up together, and you take the same amount of coins that you put in. So when you actually do that, it's kind of like mahjong, right? You put in you mix it around, you take a random coin, and the coin that you took out may not be the coin that you put in. And that gives people sort of plausible deniability, and Dash actually does a form of this. So if you want to use their private SAM, what happens is that they find other people that also want to mix their coins with you. They mix it up all together. Let's say I mix 10 coins, and after a certain period of time where they mixed it with other people's funds, they will return you 10 coins, but it might have been mixed with other people's funds. Now, the problem with this type of systems is that, okay, with Dash, they have kind of improved on it, but the traditional kind of tumblers meant that you had to trust the person mixing your coins. What that means is that they may steal your coins, they may see how it's being mixed, they may record your IP addresses. Dash gets around this by using something called CoinJoin, which prevents the people from stealing the money, but it does not prevent someone spying on it. And how they then sort of mitigate that is by using several rounds of mixing in the hope that, you know, maybe some of the master nodes aren't actually sort of recording the transactions. So this is quite a basic way of like doing sort of like anonymization of coins. It's not bad. It's also currently being used in privacy wallets for Bitcoin such as Wasabi. But the main issue right here is also that you need to provide liquidity to this type of systems. If there is no one to mix with, it's going to take a very, very long time. And by mixing it, you are kind of like, you know, highlighting to yourself that I am doing a private transaction. So what happens then is that, you know, if anyone uses a Dash private send, you want to have some sort of private balance, you mix like, you know, 100 coins. It may take several days to find the number of people to actually start, you know, getting those type of anonymized coins back. And that's also a privacy risk because your plausible deniability is only with the people that you are mixing with. It's just a very small set of people. CryptoNote actually is improving on this, and CryptoNote is actually used in Monero, the most probably visible privacy coin right now. And instead of doing sort of like coin mixing, it is kind of like auto mixing. So instead of users having to sort of put their funds into a mixer and having it being tumbled, what happens then is that CryptoNote basically scans a blockchain and finds other types of similar type of transactions to form that transaction. And typically what that means is that, you know, there'll be like other dummy transactions and one real transaction. And right now, I believe with the recent upgrade, Monero is like mixing with like 10 other people or so. So what happens when I want to send a transaction, it finds 9 other dummy transactions and then sends it to the recipient. And there will be also corresponding 9 different dummy outputs as well. So what that means is basically, you know, you have like a 1 in 10 chance to sort of decipher whose funds is it. The way to sort of visualize this rather than talking about it in this sense is that, let's say I want to let out a fart, right? And I'm in a room, and if I'm the only person in the room and I let out a fart, everyone knows it's me because I'm the only person in the room. But instead, how Monero works is that, okay, I grab 9 other people, then I let out a fart, and I could have been any person in the room rather than just me, and that's basically how coin mixing or things like Monero work. Okay? The great thing about this type of mixing is that, you know, I don't have to actively mix. You know, that means I don't have to find people. The mix is all automatically done. People don't have to be online to mix. So this is a big improvement in privacy over coin mixing, and this is why also, you know, why Monero has occupied such a high market cap and seen as the leader in privacy. Mimblewimble is actually very interesting. It's almost a form of coin join, and it hasn't been, it's not live right now. There are 2 currencies that are possible right now, which is Grid and Beam, and they are set to launch maybe in a few months from now. And how Mimblewimble works is it actually aggregates all transactions in one single huge transaction. So for example, if I send A to B, all right, that's like everyone can see what A to B is. But then other people make transactions B to D, you know, additional transactions on top of that. And what that happens is that all values in Mimblewimble are hidden. So when I send one, let's say Bitcoin under the Mimblewimble system, I can't see that what's the amount that's being transacted. It's all hidden using something called bulletproofs. And what happens then is that all these inputs are then sort of aggregated in one huge transaction. The A, B, C, D, E, F sends to D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. And it's all in one transaction, so you can't really tell who is sending to who because there's all these possible inputs and all these possible outputs. Now, this is pretty interesting, but it has certain drawbacks, meaning that due to the sort of way Mimblewimble is actually designed, you need wallets to interact with each other. So for example, in Bitcoin, I just put the address publicly online. I don't have to be online. Anyone can send to that address. I don't have to be online at all. For Mimblewimble, it's different. If I want to send to someone, that person has to send me something what we call a blinding factor, or has to be online at the same time before I can even send a transaction to him. So this is a very big usability problem, because on top of that, let's say if I want to send to multiple parties, with Bitcoin or any type of other coin, you can just say, okay, A sends to BCDE and a whole bunch of other people. But with Mimblewimble, I have to get that blinding factor from every single recipient, which is a big sort of drawback, and I'll be very interested to see how exchanges will implement coins like this. So yeah. Now we move to what we call zero knowledge proofs in privacy, and they have a very different mechanism to do privacy on the blockchain. So the previous ones are about like hiding a needle in a haystack, mixing coins with other people, mixing transactions or aggregating transactions in one single huge transaction to hide the true receiver and sender. Zero knowledge proofs work in a very different way, and the way zero coin works, which is used in Zcoin, is that I take a coin and I destroy it. And when I destroy it at any time in the future, I then retain what we call a zero knowledge proof. That means kind of like a receipt that I burnt a certain number of coins, I post that onto the blockchain, and I get new coins with no previous transaction history. So it's basically like I have this one coin that has all this previous history associated with it. I destroy it so it stops existing, and then I use the receipt at any time in the future to redeem this new coin to produce coins with no transaction history. And I spoke to some of the guys here that those of you who know, for Bitcoin, there is actually a premium being paid for Bitcoins that are freshly mined versus those that have acquired certain transaction history. So instead of like a mixing of a group of other people, your potential anonymity set is with every other person who has burnt these coins before. You're not talking about 10 people like in Monero mixing 4 or 5 other transactions. You're talking about thousands and thousands of other people who have burnt one coin. So the anonymity sets for these type of transactions are much, much greater. And what it means that we actually completely break the transaction links. So for example, when you do mixing, there is still the transaction link, it's just kind of like all these dummy transactions that's hiding it. Here is completely broken. And there's actually other use cases for this. So we're not just talking about using it as privacy in blockchain, you can also use it in voting type of systems, where you can say, I prove that I voted, but I can't, it doesn't show which way I've actually voted. So these are potential use cases for these type of privacy technologies. And actually, Zcoin just recently concluded, I think, the first wide-scale use of blockchain e-voting, where the Thai Democrat Party in Thailand, what happened was they wanted to have a primary vote to select their new party leader. And so they wanted all their party members to be able to participate in this vote. And what happened was that nobody actually trusted each other. They didn't necessarily trust the election commission, they didn't trust the other candidates, and they didn't want a centralized database. And what happened then was that they had the vote on Zcoin blockchain with over 127,000 voters that participated. And this just happened like a couple of weeks ago, so we're really proud of that. Now, one other aspect of privacy that is often overlooked is network IP privacy. So you can hide your transactions on the blockchain as much as you can, but if you can tie an IP address to a particular transaction, it kind of defeats the point, because your IP address has personal info, who you are and all this type of things. And yes, blockchain doesn't record IP addresses, but that doesn't stop you from monitoring the network and recording it yourself. And the way that Bitcoin transactions propagate are very, very predictable. It's what we call gossip protocol, where when I broadcast a transaction to a certain place, I tell everyone that's connected to me. And then that person who receives it also then tells everyone that's connected to him. So by seeing the way the transactions propagate in sort of a chain reaction, studies have shown that you can probably pinpoint the originating IP of each transaction to probably about 40 to 50% type of certainty. So that's a real big problem. And there are other technologies. Some people say just use Tor. We have implemented technology that doesn't require Tor, such as Dandelion, and there are many, many other types of systems. Just to sort of make you guys aware, there's network layer privacy and blockchain privacy, and both are very important. Now, there's a lot of regulatory responses to privacy coins, and most of them have been negative. Like, Japan has, banned all privacy coins from being listed on crypto exchanges, which is quite strange because it was in response to the CoinCheck hack, where NEM, I think like I don't know how much NEM was actually sort of stolen. And they needed a scapegoat, right? And the thing was, privacy coins weren't even involved in this hack. It was not even used, but somehow they needed to find a scapegoat and say, oh, because of this hack, we realized the risk of privacy coins, let's just ban it completely. So I think this is just a gut reaction and just to be seen as doing something. And we've also seen with Secret Service and all this, they're talking about we should not use privacy coins at all. And when even Monero, like the largest place to trade Monero and buy Monero is BitHum, which is a regulated exchange, not through a decentralized exchange. Exchanges who accept privacy cryptocurrencies know who the identity is. But if I ban it instead, what am I actually doing? I'm actually forcing all these coins to go into decentralized exchanges. I force you to go into P2P exchanges. For example, in Malaysia, we have seen where exchanges, banks are banning, not allowing any sort of exchange behavior, and the regulatory sort of framework is not very clear. What has happened is that instead of a central exchange, the number one way to buy Bitcoin in Malaysia is through Remitano, which is a P2P type of service, which is very, very, very hard to control. And even if you just say ban privacy coins, there are many places that I can swap a privacy coin to Bitcoin and then bring it back. So what actually is the difference by just banning privacy coins? And what about, now Ethereum is talking about privacy smart contracts. Am I going to ban Ethereum just because it has privacy features? And I think regulators really have to think, what are they trying to do right here? Whether they should embrace the change and try to regulate around it rather than just outright banning it. And that basically ends my presentation, and I'll be taking any questions from the floor if anyone has any question on privacy coins or Zcoin or anything like that. Okay, no questions? Oops. Thank you very much. If you want to check out our websites at zcon.io, we're traded on Bittrex, Binance, Huobi. You can look us up, and we'll be happy to answer any questions in our community channels. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Rubin, for the sessions on privacy. I would like now to call upon our next presenter, Mr. Christian Xie, CEO of Tokenomics. Christian Xie is the co-founder and CEO of Tokenomics, a crypto token exchange and blockchain project launchpad. A former executive director at JP Morgan, Christian has over 15 years of management and international banking experience. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Christian Xie.
It's been a pleasure being here. I guess people heard about us before. If you haven't heard about us, you heard about us this morning from the regulators. We're very proud to be supported by regulators. They supported our ICO. So Tokenomics is a token launchpad. It's play on words, token economy. So we want to embrace the token economy. So I'll have a brief introduction about what's beyond Bitcoin in the future of token economy. Now, Bitcoin, as everybody know, it's been 10 years old. So let's see. Does it work? Okay, yeah. So it's been 10 years since Bitcoin white paper was first released, and the first Genesis block was mined January 9th, 2009. So it's been 10 years, and then it's been quite of a ride. And I personally got into Bitcoin really by accident. A couple of my friends in America, they said they want to make a movie about Bitcoin, and then they want to live on Bitcoin for 3 months after their marriage. So young couple, they said they want to, live on Bitcoin. They want to raise funds and do a documentary, have a camera crew following them all the way around the world. They actually made around the world to spend only Bitcoin for 100 days. So that was the movie called Live on Bitcoin. You can check it out, it's really fun. And then the thing is, when I got involved in producing this movie, I just realized, wow, this is a fascinating technology. And then I made my first trip to Bali in 2013 to meet this company called Bitcoin Indonesia. Bitcoin Indonesia is founded by Oscar Damawan. You heard him speak. So this is actually, when I first came here, this is what Bitcoin Indonesia looked like. It's a very small shop in Kuta. And then you can see the sign was drawn by hand. And you can see a phone number saying we're hiring. It's a very humble beginning. But 5 years later, this is what Indodex looked like. It's quite amazing. We have client center over there, and people can go in and ask about Bitcoin and other digital assets. So I think everything starts with humble beginning, right? And Bitcoin, even in 10 years, I think it has made a lot of progress, but still a lot of people don't understand what Bitcoin is because the knowledge gap is really wide. Satoshi Nakamoto, you really have to give him credit because he really combined a lot of elements into his white paper. Somebody wrote this white paper has to understand math, has to understand computer science, has to understand economy and network, internet security, and game theory. So normal people can't really comprehend all these multidisciplinary subjects. So that's why I think the knowledge gap for Bitcoin is wide. But after 10 years, I think everybody heard about Bitcoin. People want to play around with it and have a lot of experiment. So in our day, I think all of cryptocurrency, we have crypto tokens, whether it be platform token, you got Ethereum, you got Neo, you got the biggest ICO ever, which is EOS. A lot of people building platforms. This is just the beginning, right? And then we have utility tokens, where people are using token as digital coupons and as a payment access to services. And we have security token, which I think people are playing around. There's not much regulatory approval right now. A lot of people can just play in the sandbox, but that's also a humble beginning. I believe this will be huge in the future. And then we have natural assets token, basically what Wall Street has been done in the past decades. They're putting asset backed by paper. Now you can use asset backed by tokens, right? So this will come. And then crypto collectibles, those crypto kitties and crypto baseball cards, those are things going to come out, and then art tagged by blockchain, traceable blockchain tokens. And then the last one is the fiat currency, which is a stable coin, and already have a handful of stable coin that got approved by regulators. So I think after 10 years, we're still kind of in the beginning, but a lot of things are going to happen, and this is just very exciting. Now, I think a lot of people, when the price is high, they all wanted to go to the moon. And I think at this point in time, the moon looks a little bit far away, but it's still, we can still eventually get there. And I think it gets people thinking, right? It's not that easy to get to the moon because it's a long process. And I think we also talk about the upside of the blockchain and decentralized currency. We know you can have freedom, you can be tracked, you can be your own bank. But at the same time, I think the downside is that you got to be very knowledgeable about security. How do you protect your digital assets, and how do you manage your risk? How do you make sure that you don't you have the capacity to wait to ride this volatility? I recently read an article about having grit in this crypto market is definitely essential. And grit is I think my psychologist written a book about grit. It's like having a perseverance and passion towards a long-term goal. I think we're aiming for a long-term goal, which is transformation of digital asset. But I think perseverance and passion is needed to survive this through this volatility. So I worked in the bank for close to a decade, and banking industry actually moves quite slow. So I think the first iPhone came out in 2007. It changed everything, right? Everybody's on a mobile phone, and then I think after iPhone's release, like a couple years later, 2008, 2009, the largest GPS makers start losing money because everybody using your phone as a map, and then a couple of years later, and then camera makers start losing money because everybody uses their phone to take pictures. So it's really transformation. Internet really gave us a lot of convenience. And you don't see a lot of people crying at the airport anymore, because your loved one can just be on your phone all the time. You can instant chat. So I think behavior change has brought us a lot of convenience through technology. Now I think one industry has been slowly not being disrupted, which is the finance industry. Still takes a lot of time to make money move. And also a lot of micropayments. For example, there's nearly impossible to send like $1 from here to another side of the world without friction, because micropayment basically right now through the existing financial system is just not possible. So right now we have a lot of things that can change. But financial industry actually is changing. If you look at a longer term horizon, like 20, 30 years, right? In the past, I think in IPO, for example, usually majority of the company, the technology that go on public is profitable, right? Right now, only 20% of them are profitable, right? And then you look at the private equity market, used to be the largest company are public companies, and now a lot of companies actually remain private and they're really profitable. And bonds, for example, this slide is from Stats by Tom Lee's research firm. It's very interesting. They say, in the past, bonds are interest yielding instruments, right? So, but right now, in 2017, in 80% of the German bonds issue have negative yields. So a lot of kind of paradigm shift happening in the financial industry, and this is good because I think we're changing, we're evolving. Sometimes the textbook taught you something 20 years ago is different than what it is today. So I think financial industry is due for a change, and then this is a good thing because I think it will bring us convenience. But again, we have to take the responsibility to take the risk. Now let's talk about the token structure. This is one of the structures that I would like to point it out as money structures, right? And in a traditional financial setting, the stockholders are the investors, right? They own a portion of the stock, and then sometimes the founders are raising money, and then they're creating a product after they raise the fund, and then they deliver to the customer. So the customer is the bottom. Sometimes they have different agenda with the investors. The investors want a share price to go up. Customers always want cheaper, faster goods. They don't care about the company profitability because if you're more expensive, then they'll go to another vendor. So really, you have a little bit dilemma between the founders, the entrepreneurs, and the investors, and the customers. But in the token economy, which is next slide, you actually tokenize. You can tokenize your product so that your product and services is owned by the users, and again, at the same time, the investors invest in those tokens, and the founders have those tokens. So everybody can kind of have the same goal to drive that token price up by users. For example, we talk about Facebook, and it has the largest user base outside America. It's in India and Indonesia, right? But how many Indonesians actually own Facebook shares? How many Indonesian or Indian population actually get benefit by contributing content, posting likes and those things on Facebook? No, it's mostly earned the money earned by the investors. But what if this big company can be tokenized? And you can have fractional ownership so that the more you spend on making this platform good, and the more you benefit, and everybody benefits. So it's more like a financial inclusion proposal. So I think the tokenization of companies or services, it really makes sense. So from the traditional point of view to the new world, I think we're gonna hit some bumps, but I think it's bound to happen. But one example is Ripple. I'm not trying to advertise for Ripple, but Ripple is trying to change the traditional SWIFT system, right? SWIFT system is invented in 1973, it's like 40 years old, but it's really due for an overhaul. And what happens is Ripple is using exchange liquidities to make sure that you can transfer a fraction of money from the other side of the world to the other side of the world, and then with very low cost. So this is a good innovation. I don't think it's going to affect the Ripple price, but I think a lot of people misunderstand. Although Ripple actually has two companies. Ripple Lab is pushing this remittance services, and the token is just experiment for people who trade. But this is a good innovation. I think it will make our lives much more convenient in the future. So this is on the development. And what kind of token projects are there? I think today you've heard quite a bit of applications in terms of using in healthcare and privacy in different industries. I would say the low-hanging fruits probably are in the already in the virtual industry, for example, gaming, right? The Major League Baseball, right? They actually have a crypto baseball game, so it's related to gaming, it's related to crypto asset. And then another thing is loyalty points, right? So a lot of hotels, hospitality industries, airlines, they actually will have those loyalty points already. They will actually experiment cryptocurrency. For example, next year, I think Delta Airlines, the largest airline in America, they said they will change their reward points to crypto using Ethereum. So those are kind of low-hanging fruits because they already have a large ecosystem, they already have a lot of users, and then those users can actually have an option, not just redeem their tokens for a specific service. They can change to other cryptocurrencies and make it more useful. And for companies, when you have a lot of mileage, loyalty points issued out, it's actually on your liability side of the balance sheet. And in a way, if it's changed to other tokens, actually becomes assets. So I think it makes sense to a company as well, right? Not just saying, it's one side, it's everybody will benefit. So these are the things that we see, and the cryptocurrency market or blockchain market doesn't really, the indicator is not just the Bitcoin price, right? I think this year we went from January all the way down to November, but actually we have a really good year in terms of ICOs. We have $21 billion raised in ICOs. Last year, 2017, only $6 billion, so we're only 3 times from last year. So a lot of innovation as it came out. This is very comforting for operators like us, participants, to see that actually we're building things that a lot of innovation is yet to come. And then those companies are representing all kinds of different industries. From the gaming, from reward points, from platform, from infrastructure, a lot of things are doing in financial services, but I think every single industry will have its implication on blockchain. So this is very comforting to know, and I think we're in a very critical time. I see a lot of my friends and colleagues from traditional banking actually decided to leave, to join this blockchain revolution. And one of my friends sitting down there also, it's a good colleague, is going to run a new exchange. So I think we feel very comfortable about this new paradigm shift. I think it's going to take time. As long as we don't set our eyes on the price only, we can see the whole ecosystem is always improving, and it's growing at a very fast speed. Now, I want to also talk about regulation. I think the regulators has already given us a really good overview on what regulation would take place in Indonesia. It's very comforting to see that I think nowadays government is really keen on helping cultivating this innovation. Well, SEC recently came out on the annual report saying that they're going to crack down a lot of ICOs, and they took Ether Delta as the first company to punish. I think it's good to have strict regulation, but at the same time, I think not all regulators are the same. So I want to share a quick video clip about what was shared last month, also here in Bali. That was the IMF annual conference together with World Bank. And then President Jokowi actually shared something to the audience about what his view on innovation. So maybe we can play this video and we can see what the President says.
Ladies and gentlemen, similar to the original internet boom 25 years ago, we should not rush to regulate these new innovations, but should allow innovation and experimentation to flourish first. That means we should once again approach this big wave of innovation with light thoughts, regulation, and we should provide safe harbor to those inventors and entrepreneurs who are bringing radical new tools to society. Innovation comes from experimentation, and many or even most experiments fail. That is the nature of experiment. To punish failure is to discourage experiments, and without experiment, there simply cannot be innovation. Therefore, it would be contradictory to talk about wanting innovation, but then to punish failure excessively.
It's well said by President Jokowi. I think we feel very fortunate that we're here in Indonesia. There's a survey by Pew Research saying that, what do people nowadays trust government? I think one of the largest country in the world who also issued the national currency in the world, actually the trust is decreasing. But Indonesia, actually, I can show you the charts on another occasion, but actually Indonesia, I think people really, really trust their government. I think government like this have a public statement about cultivating innovation, welcoming innovation. It's very comforting. That's why I think we're in a very good place today to cultivate. And then the thing is, experiment, you can not always succeed. That's why on Tokenomics Launchpad, we have a lot of new startups, new ideas. Not all of them is going to succeed, but we're going to, we put them on our launchpad because we believe in the founder. They can create something that can make a difference. For example, we just finished a token launch called Play Game Token. The Play Game Token is the largest Southeast Asia game developer. They want to make sure that they have a token utility in the game development community, and we have tokens on data coins where people can actually collect data and then get paid. So these are pretty much just small microtransactions, but as long as people have mobile phones, they can take a picture and people get verified. Okay, people can buy these real-time data. So those kind of innovations are happening, and then and for us in Tokenomics, we want to embrace token economy. So we encourage a lot of the ideas that come to our launchpad so that we can together work on building this token economy. Now, last note, I want to talk about stablecoins. I think this week is Singapore FinTech Week. Singapore FinTech Week has drawn a lot of crowds from all over the world. I think you watched this before, so yes, Christine Lagarde is the Managing Director of IMF. She actually said that government should start thinking about issuing their own cryptocurrency. I think my view is that this is actually to the benefit to the government, because right now a lot of illicit transaction because you can't track it. Now, if you issue these currencies, you can track them. There's no need for FATCA anymore. There's no need for CRS to come and reporting standard. It's if you can track where people spend money, it's kind of scary, but I think it's really to the benefit of the government to do that. And then for the users, they can choose. Okay, maybe I want to use Bitcoin. I want to get tracked by purchasing something, or my vacation and my spending. But I think there's a strong movement from the institutional level, from the retail level, from the grassroots level to embrace this technology, and the future is very bright. So when we have this ability to see the future, we can always keep a smile in our heart and in our face, because the future is bright. And then let's keep the hope that eventually, I think we will see the fruit of our labor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Christian, for explaining the future of token economy. I would like now to call upon our next presenter, Mr. Vincent So, CEO of EBS Capital Partners. Vincent So is CEO of EBS Capital Partners, a boutique blockchain and token advisory firm in Singapore. As an early investor in blockchain, Vincent has seen the exciting opportunities and remaining challenges to adoption of our industry. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Vincent So.
Good afternoon, I'm Vincent So from Singapore, CEO of EBS Capital Partners. This is my Indonesian partner, Johnny Gunawan. So he's a presenter and professional speaker in his own right, so we'll be presenting this together today.
Okay, welcome. My name is Johnny Gunawan.
Okay, let's start. So, EBS is a boutique firm. We are small. We have not done that many projects, and I feel that we do not have the macro view of the whole tokenomic system. However, the difference is that I started as a trader in crypto, because I think I'm not supposed to emphasize that a lot in this marketplace. But I think from there, I sort of really understand all the marketing that's gone to ICOs. And from there, I realized that, maybe we have not done the benefit for ourselves. And so today, maybe I can help all the people here with how I feel the industry is going.
Sekilas bahwa Pak Vincent melihat bahwa peluang bagus banget di dunia kripto ini, tapi seringkali untuk proses ICO ini ternyata butuh banyak biaya di marketing dan butuh banyak hal-hal yang lain supaya buat industri ini menjadi baik lagi.
Okay, so this is our QR code. You can actually scan it for our website ebscap.com. Okay, so our experience in that, we have done over the last 4 months about 3 projects, and all these projects have actually hit soft cap or hard cap. And we have actually modified our processes over time. Initially, public sales was very important, but now we focus more on private sales.
Jadi ini adalah beberapa proyek yang kita bantu, dan pengalaman ini membuat kita ternyata kenal bahwa ternyata bukan hanya dari crowd sale, tapi private sale juga sangat penting.
So, Aura is actually the first ICO launched by a public listed company in Singapore. So EBS actually has quite a number of public listed companies who are interested to engage us to do their token offerings.
Jadi Aura adalah perusahaan TBK di Singapura yang pertama yang mau melakukan sebuah token yang bekerja sama dengan EBS Capital, dan dengan ini kita sebenarnya banyak sekali perusahaan TBK yang ingin sekali bekerja sama dengan kami.
Okay. However, the marketplace I think does not support that at the moment, so we are doing projects one by one.
Ya, jadi karena situasi pasar tidak memungkinkan, jadi sekarang kita lihat per project basis.
Okay, so just a brief history of EBS roadmap, because all the ICOs always do roadmaps, and I thought that my firm should do a roadmap as well. We have always known about cryptocurrencies for a very long time, but I saw really picked up on it when it started jumping above, Ethereum started jumping above $40. And that was, I feel, a moment where there was some stability to the token.
Ya, ini ada roadmap dari EBS. Walaupun sudah lama digital currency ini, saya mulai perhatikannya saat waktu Ethereum masih di harga 40. Nah itu baru saya benar-benar perhatikan.
Okay, recently the token price dropped from 6,005 all the way to 5,006. But I'm not too worried about that because there was one point when Bitcoin also dropped from close to 3,000 down to 1,008. And it was the same guys who caused the problem, the same founders of Bitcoin, and now they have problems with Bitcoin Cash.
Sekarang kan dari harga 6 ribuan turun ke 5 ribuan. Dan pengalaman ini juga kita nggak heran karena sebelumnya juga pernah 3 ribuan turun 7 ribuan. Ini adalah memang dilakukan oleh orang yang sama. Jadi ini terulang kan, ada proses waktunya.
Actually, in a bull market for cryptocurrencies, given that it is always so fast, the bull market is always so fast that actually some kind of business to be conducted, any kind of business that can only be conducted during a bull market is not a good business.
Ya, karena waktu bull market, waktu market yang naik itu begitu cepat. Jadi bisnis kalau kita mau jalanin saat naik itu jadi harus lebih hati-hati, lebih diperhatikan.
So actually EBS started during the winter when actually everything we collected all profits from investment. Then we started doing advisory because we believe in the long-term business.
Ya, kalau waktu kita udah banyak profit saat waktu market yang pasar naik, jadi kita dari profit itu kita menjalankan advisory karena kita pikir bisnis ini adalah bisnis yang jangka panjang.
So among our group of friends who invested in cryptocurrency at this point, we all made at least 40 times and above, but that was a task.
Jadi dengan teman-teman yang invest di kripto, kita mendapat hasil sampai 40 kali lipat. Jadi itu masa lalu sih.
Okay, so then during that period, we started taking on different projects at different times, and actually in November this month, we'll be launching a new ecosystem. So I believe that EBS now should acquire assets in this space and contribute part to the infrastructure.
Nah, setelah beberapa proyek terus bisa berjalan, November ini EBS rencananya menciptakan sebuah ekosistem yang baru. Jadi ini yang kita mau acquire, kerjasama dan lebih berkembangin.
Okay, so today I'll be presenting on some insights, friends, because whatever I say today is only my point of view. So I actually interviewed about 50 blockchain companies, friends of mine, because it's very important to have very strong relationship in this industry if you want to do a business. So I interviewed some friends of mine working on different projects, and I'm glad to provide the results of that informal survey today.
Jadi daripada hanya dengerin input dari saya sendiri, saya lakukan survei kepada 50 perusahaan yang di dunia digital ini dan mendengarkan kata-kata mereka tentang bisnis ini, industri ini seperti apa. Semoga insight ini membantu teman-teman.
Okay, so one area that some overview of what a lot of people are trying to do is that they are trying to decentralize the internet.
Ya, salah satu prosesnya adalah banyak orang mencoba mendesentralkan internetnya, jadi tidak decentralized lagi.
Okay, so for all the problems of the current internet, it still functions well. However, a lot of people just believe that it's fairer, more open, and probably less control if you have a decentralized internet. And that's what most of the people, most of the ICOs, a lot of the ICOs are working towards now.
Dengan pemikiran sebuah internet yang decentralized adalah internet yang lebih terbuka, yang lebih fair, dan lebih musyawarah yang membantu banyak hal. Nah itulah arah ICO menuju ke sana.
And that's why they say that people who do innovation at this stage are often rebels. They just don't like to be controlled. They just want a more open protocol.
Karena itu banyak orang bilang kalau di saat-saat ini yang berinovasi itu seringkali adalah pemberontak ya, tidak suka diatur gitu.
So actually, both diagrams are supposed to be the same, whether it's centralized or decentralized. Generally, the output on your screen should roughly be the same.
Apakah centralized decentralized? Intinya output buat user adalah sama aja, nggak tahu belakangnya bedanya apa.
It can be more secure, less secure. It can be faster, less faster. But I think for most consumers, the effect is the same. So the second part is what is the cost, the crew. The central part is whether difference between the bulls and the bears of the market, whether we are actually producing something called a general purpose technology.
Ya, jadi apakah market naik turun? Sebenarnya kita perhatikan kita menciptakan sebuah teknologi baru untuk pada tujuan tertentu.
Okay, general purpose technology will be something like the internet or electricity, something that has tremendous effects across society for a very long time.
Sebuah general purpose technology seperti ini adalah sebuah inovasi, sebuah teknologi yang bisa membantu buat banyak orang, seperti ciptaannya ada listrik atau ciptaan internet yang bermanfaat buat banyak orang.
And that is really at the central of the argument. Whether you believe in cryptocurrency or you don't believe in cryptocurrency is all based on whether you believe that blockchain will make that kind of difference.
Apakah orang percaya tentang cryptocurrency atau tidak? Sebenarnya apakah percaya bahwa teknologi ini bisa membuat perubahan sebegitu besar buat banyak orang?
So general purpose technologies have their effects are counted in decades, and actually we are still experiencing the end effect of the IT era for GPT of technology of tech. So actually, if blockchain is only 1 year, it's still very far away from the potential benefits that we may accrue in the future.
Ya, karena general purpose technology biasanya dihitungnya per puluhan tahun. Jadi contoh ini adalah grafik sebuah teknologi IT industri yang ternyata kebaikannya ini makin lama makin dirasakan. Jadi teknologi industri ini yang kita ada ini masih baru, masih belum gitu dampak besar luasnya masih belum kelihatan.
Yeah. So actually, at the end of it, is whether you believe blockchain can have this kind of effect.
Ujungnya adalah apakah kita percaya bahwa blockchain bisa membantu dan menciptakan efek ini?
I think this is a very good start for you to investigate whether you should be in blockchain or not.
Ini adalah mulai yang baik untuk kita memikirkan apakah kita sebaiknya mulai di dunia industri ini untuk tujuan kepentingan ini.
Okay, so currently my friends the tech guys are all building infrastructure. Okay, so the bottom 3 layer, the protocol, the network, and the infrastructure is what people normally call the blockchain layer. And on top of that, people are building services and tools for people to use it to develop apps. Okay, so each layer, for what it's worth, none is more important than the other because you need dApps to bring users and also transactions to the chain. But you also need tools to make it easier for people to build new applications. And of course, the blockchain itself must be good.
Jadi 3 layer di bawah adalah biasanya yang dikenal oleh blockchain, tapi layer yang di atas itu juga sangat penting, yang ada service dan aplikasi. Jadi 5 layer ini semua tidak ada yang lebih penting, tidak ada yang lebih kurang penting, semua sama pentingnya untuk saling menopang supaya teknologi ini bisa bermanfaat buat lebih banyak orang.
So when you argue with another person whether this ICO is better or the other, it's best to determine which layer they belong to and to compare it with the right ICOs.